in the days of social media, things can easily go viral. And this is not the kind of publicity I would have loved to have, but it went viral within the first 24 hours. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was getting calls from Barbados. I got calls
Good morning, Bishop. How are you doing, Bishop?
Good morning, Venerable Dave. How are you today?
I'm doing good.
All right.
We have you live on our show this morning. And this morning, I would be happy to ask you a few questions around our ministry here in the US. And I'm happy to have you in this show. Bishop, we understand you are
I'm happy to be here myself. I want to, first of all, before we go into interview, let me thank you and commend you, Venerable Dave, for this work which you have started. And I want to let you know that this really makes me glad that you have started this work. And I want to prophesy publicly to everybody's hearing that this work is going to grow. It's going to grow. I don't know how far it's going to go, but I see it as something that is going to go global. It's going to go viral. People are going to hear more because this is something new and we need it. If you look at the Anglican circle, we have a couple of journalists, Anglican journalists, but we don't know, there are not many of them who are people of color. And so what happens, as the saying goes, that until the lions start writing their own stories or having their own writers write their stories, the encounter between the lions and the hunters, since it's always written by the hunters, will always favor the hunter. So right now, I see a situation where for a beginning, we're beginning to have our own writers now begin to write our story. And in the Northeast, the entire of the United States, the Anglican walkway, I see this as the beginning of us now having people chronicle and document and write our own stories so that it's not going to be written by people who have a perspective that is different from our own perspective. Thank you. So I commend you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. We are indeed very grateful, and we thank you for your fatherly support. So far, you have been so great. So far, you have supported this work from the beginning and the idea, actually. So, Bishop, this day, I want us to go straight to the questions that we have set up for you. And one of them would be that we understand that you are a medical doctor. How do you fix this? How do you carry along your duty as a medical doctor and at the same time doing the work of the ministry?
Well, I expected that. Well, a lot of people, that's the first thing people ask me. Augustine, you are a doctor? Yes. You're also a bishop? How do you do that? I say, well, the only explanation is the grace of God. It is only by the grace of God you can do that. Yes, I'm a physician, trained originally from Nigeria. I schooled in the University of Benin, graduated, and then practiced for about 5 years in Nigeria before I came to the United States in America. Invited, and I always...
Thank you, Bishop. Because of our time, I want to know, how do you feel about the relationship between ACNA and CONAM, looking at the current challenge and situations in this country over our mission and partnership together? What do you have to say about ACNA and CONAM? Thank you.
Well, I'm sure if you know my work and if you followed my work very carefully over the years, you'll know that you can almost predict where I am in this position. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I'm not happy that at where we are right now. I think that our relationship can be much better than this. It will appear that we see ourselves as competitors instead of collaborators. And I think that there's a lot of major misunderstanding. And partly because if you look at the way this work is going, the aggressive, when you look at the aggressive program of the Church of Nigeria in mission, we are very passionate about church planting. I mean, Dave, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you work.
Yes, I do.
All right. The present situation in Nigeria, and it was not always so, by the way. And I want people to understand that this current move in the Church of Nigeria, where we are having the growth of the Anglican Church, it was not always like this. Yes, there was a time when the Anglican Church was dying. If you go in the 80s, in the 70s, the Anglican Church was a dying church in Nigeria. But at some point, there were some major changes that were made in our liturgy. There was changes made in our services and the style of worship from a more Anglo-Catholic kind of service into a more evangelical and expressive kind of service. So what you now have in the Anglican Church in Nigeria is really a very low church that is more expressive and almost evangelical in its expression. And so when you go to a typical Anglican church, you have praise and worship, you have dancing, you have expressive singing. And this all combined is what has made this new move in the Anglican Church that has brought in the younger people who were leaving the church in droves. And then they are coming back. Coming to the North America, we are trying to catch up. They're trying to catch up, but we're not quite there right now. The Nigerian church is bringing an expression of Anglicanism, which I think is supposed to help. But unfortunately, if you do not understand the mindset of what they're doing, there's a tendency to think that this is an ambition or some plan to establish another province in North America. The Church of Nigeria is not interested in starting in another province in North America. No, absolutely not. We just want to plant churches. We want to establish mission in America. We want to be able to have churches all over the states so that people, everywhere you can have Anglican churches for people to attend. People who want to stay Orthodox, people who want to stay with the Bible, they can have a church to attend. Right now, we don't have that. Neither from ACNA nor from CODA. We don't have that. There are states where you don't have a single church at all. There are states where you can drive like 8 hours before you see an ACNA or CONAM church. So there's a lot of work to be done. And to some extent, I actually think the divide between ACNA and the Church of Nigeria is actually one that the devil himself is happy about. And I think that the devil is doing everything to make sure we never come together to see eye to eye, so that this work will never proceed well. But by the grace of God, I know some of this, you see, in any work, there are always misunderstandings. You come to a point where you have misunderstanding. Anytime you have human beings, you have misunderstandings. If you go to the Bible, even from the Acts of the Apostle, there was crisis. I mean, the Grecian women and
yes.
You know the story about how they were neglected the daily sharing of bread. Well, they complained. The apostles dealt with it. At some point, Paul and Barnabas had a crisis over who to go with them on mission. John Paul, Silas. Well, Paul said, no. John Paul is not coming with us. That caused a major crisis. They divided. One group went this way, the other group went the other way. But the mission continued. Okay? So wherever you have people coming together, there is bound to misunderstanding. Unfortunately,
We can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, unfortunately, sometimes these misunderstandings, if they are not addressed properly, they can lead to more crisis. So I see the little misunderstandings between the Church of Nigeria and ACNA. I think it's something that it's not such a big problem. It's just something that we need to come to the table, as we have done in the past. Years ago, we had the ACNA and Church of Nigeria sat down. We had our protocols. We sat down. We wrote out a bunch of protocols on how we operate. I think that, if you ask my opinion, I think it's time for another sitting down with ACNA to say, hey, how are we doing with this mission? What is it we are not seeing? Where are we misunderstanding each other? What is it you are saying I'm not understanding? We need to talk. We need to talk with each other. And that is, I think that's a major problem we have today. We don't talk with each other at all. People don't talk to each other. I mean,
my Lord Bishop, thank you again. This will bring us to the end, but before we go, the last time we saw you in a viral video on Facebook, we want you to explain to our viewers to understand, so we may understand that you are not actually violent, and that you are actually there for church worship. Is that what it is?
All right, Dave, thank you for that question. I would have been surprised if that question did not come. Well, unfortunately, in the days of social media, things can easily go viral. And this is not the kind of publicity I would have loved to have, but it went viral within the first 24 hours. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was getting calls from Barbados. I got calls from Kenya, from Uganda, all over the place. Bishop Munigbe, what's going on? What's happening? What's going on? What's happening? I'm like, excuse me? So, but in a little nutshell, in a summary of what's going on, the Igbo Anglican Church in Irvington is a beautiful church. Actually, one of our oldest churches in America. It was started some years ago by Venerable Nwigwe, who is still very much alive. I remember those days when they started in St. John's in Elizabeth. And that church, they've grown over the years. They've become a big church now. And they have money. They have some good money now. So sometimes when you have money in a church, some things can begin to happen. So, but what is the real problem? Well, they got a priest a few years ago, nice gentleman, but I think he has a little bit of some issues with management of church, a little bit. And so what happens is they've been having this crisis within the church in the last 2-3 years. When they were under Bishop Orji, and then it went a little bit out of control.
Okay.
But instead of the priest allowing himself to be under order, to take orders and do what he's told to do, he's refusing to take orders from anybody. Bishop Orji had told him, I mean, the two major things that were the issues in the church was, number one, there was an accusation of the church's finances not being audited. Some of the members were calling for auditing of their account, which by the way, I don't think that's a problem. If you are a priest in any church, there is no reason why you should be against your church's account being audited. It's normal. I mean, when I was in Episcopal Church, every annual meeting, we had our annual report with the complete financial report. Everybody in the church had a copy of that financial report. Venerable Dave, I don't think that's anything out of normal order, right?
No, that's our church practice.
That's the normal church polity.
Yes.
Every member of the church is to have a copy of the audited account every year, number one. Number two, problem was their election, which some of the members have accused the priest of deliberately doctoring the vestry elections to only bring in the people that agree with him into the vestry, and manipulating the vestry elections such that the people who don't agree with him can't come on the vestry. Those are the 2 points. And so now this issue went on, and different levels of intervention. And while all these problems were going on, we heard that the priest, along with a few people in the church, had moved the church to a diocese in ACNA. Unfortunately, the bishop himself did not do his own homework and did not realize that there was crisis in the church, number one. Number two, the church had not officially voted to join ACNA. The priest claims that they had a vote, but from what we heard, they had a vote. The vote, they had 2 ballots. The first ballot was to vote to leave the diocese, Anglican Diocese of the West. The second vote was to vote to join the Anglican Diocese of Trinity, as requested by the Church of Nigeria. Now, you didn't have to have that vote like that. That was just, but what he did was he took 1 vote, and that vote was to leave ADOTW. And when that vote was taken, they counted it, and he said, it is now, the result is now in. We are now out of the Anglican Diocese of the West. So now they are now out of the Anglican Diocese of the West. But to take the second vote, he refused to take the second vote. So now he takes that vote, goes to Anglican Diocese of Rocky Mountains, and then that's all we had. And so you now have the church divided into 2, 1 group against and 1 group for. And for us, some of us, we were just trying to mediate and make sure this crisis didn't degenerate further. If you remember, sometime in February last year, these demonstrations there were videos all over.
Yes, we have clips on social media and all over. Yes,
now,
sometime last year.
At that time, this crisis was already going on because the priests, they were going to have their vestry election, and the priest refused to take ballots from people who he didn't want to come on the vestry. And deliberately, they refused to take some ballots from some people. And a committee was set up by Bishop Orji. Bishop Orji set up the committee, and the committee came up with a report, sent a report, and Bishop Orji wrote a letter to this priest. Listen, we've reviewed everything. You need to redo your election, and you need to do the audit of your church account as requested. As we speak, none of those 2 things were done. But the next he did was, to avoid being held accountable, he dashes off to Anglican Diocese of the Rocky Mountains to take cover. So what we are asking for is basic. Fairness, equity. If you have a division in a church, you don't take one part of the church and run away with it.
No.
You bring the 2 parties together. And that's what I expected Bishop Orji and Bishop Ross to do. They needed to have brought these 2 parties together. But instead, somehow, one group had the support of the bishops against this other group who were now kept outside. And by the way, the day I came to that church, they were locked. These people who were on the other group of people, there were police officers manning the door of the church, basically telling them, yes, are you one of those who are the troublemakers in the church? You are not allowed to come in. You are one of the people that they were saying, no, you are not allowed to come into the church. I've never heard that done before. Some people are worshiping in the church and others are locked outside the church.
That was what happened?
That was what happened.
When you arrived?
When I arrived. And the group that were locked out called me and said, Bishop, we don't know what's going on. They locked us out of the church. I said, well, I'm coming.
Oh, so you were not there from the beginning?
I was not there from the beginning. I had another program in town the day before. And you remember when the night before was when we did the dedication of High Decree of Transfiguration of New York.
New York.
So when we finished the dedication of High Decree of New York, I slept in North Jersey that night. And I was planning to travel back to South Jersey. But then I was just dressing up when I got a call from them about 10 o'clock that the church was they suddenly came to church that morning, and everywhere the venerable had brought in police to cover the whole church. And so now they felt insecure. So I came to the church and I basically just walked into the compound. I saw the police officers. I introduced myself. I was not aggressive to anybody. And I introduced myself. I gave them my ID card. I gave them my business card. And I said, hey, listen, I'm here. I heard what's going on. What is happening? And the police officer told me they were under instruction not to allow anybody who was not invited to come into the service. I said, what do you mean by that? I've never heard about that before. Well, anyway, the lady who was the police supervisor, the supervisor who was at the door, I talked to her and I said, listen, I don't understand why you guys are taking side with these people. If there is a disagreement, the right thing is to bring the two parties together. But for you to, even as police officers, now you are taking side with one group against the other. Where is justice here? And when I said that to the woman, she basically threw up her hand and said, hey, we're not part of this. We're not here to take side with anybody. We are here to maintain peace. I said, okay, fine. If you're maintaining peace, you don't maintain peace by keeping one group out of the church. So they then said, okay, fine. In that case, everybody can go into the service. So I took my investment and I was going in. I didn't know what was going on inside the church. I walked into the service. And as I got into the service, they ushered me. It was even one of the ushers who said, Bishop, please just go ahead. Just go on. And when they said, go on, I assumed that they had cleared me to go. So I cleared myself and I started going. And then suddenly one of the knights stood up and basically came and was going to rough handle me. And then it was at that point, one of the members of the congregation who felt this was not right, a way to treat a bishop. So he pushed the other man away. So that was what happened.
Thank you for this brief explanation. What's your relationship with ACNA? On personal ground, that being said, Bishop Orji, do you guys talk?
Oh yeah, well, the ones that talk with me, I talk with them. I think Bishop Orji is, I mean, we've worked for many years together. He's my friend. I mean, everybody knows Bishop Orji is my friend, okay? I'm probably one of the few people that can tell him the truth. And he knows that. When I'm upset with him, I tell him the truth. And I don't mind him telling me the same. When he's wrong, I tell him you're wrong. He's my brother. He's my Christian brother. I mean, people make mistakes, but he's a brother. And
we hope that this issue in Abington, New Jersey, will get settled and we will all become one again in Christ.
We can't wait for.
This is our earnest prayer.
David,
there will be peace in that parish.
Yeah, Dave. Actually, let me tell you something. We missed an opportunity for a kubaya that day, because Bishop Ross, I can't wait to see him. I can't wait to see him. I hope we see in GAFCON. I can't wait to see him, because I think that there was a missed opportunity that day. Because after I came in, he saw me, we hugged each other. Can you imagine it? We hugged each other. Now, nobody reported that. We hugged each other. Okay, we hugged each other.
The media will always take the aspect that will interest the public.
We hugged each other, and I was trying to tell him, look, why don't we calm everybody down and have the service And then after the service, you can talk with these people. They just want to talk with you. They want you to sit down with them. The other side, the other group, they just want you to hear their own side of the story. That's all. And then you can make your own judgment based on that. And by the way, he had met with them the day before, and he had, in fact, when he heard the stories of how the other side of the group felt, he told them, the videos are there, recorded. He said to them, your church has not officially joined us. We have not received your church into our diocese.
Thank you, Bishop. With these great explanations of yours, we want to believe that our viewers have gotten a little insight about what happened in Abington, New Jersey, about your role as a medical doctor and how you combine your ministry together with that of the church. Thank you.